In part 2 of this course design series, we're going to look at 5 recommendations or best practices to help you go pro. These are even more things that you can do to make the learning experience effective for kids. So these are some comments that we got the first time we did some flex days with our kids. They said things like, make sure all teachers make a schedule to tell us exactly what we have to do each day, because some teachers are not clear at all. Teach teachers how to accurately organize their Schoology so we know exactly what to do on the flex learning days. It would be nice if there was one spot where all assignments were posted so I could get them quickly and then go to the individual class pages to get more information. And these are some things that we're trying to take into account as we design these courses for our students. They want clarity and consistency. In other words, we need to be simple, clear, consistent, and even they may not always realize it, ADA compliant. So the first suggestion is clear, consistent organization. Chunk that content that you have into clearly labeled folders. Make sure that the way you chunk things is kind of consistent. Maybe it's days or maybe it's weeks, but have a consistent reason why you chunk things the way you do. And then come up with a consistent naming convention. So in this case here, you can see the folder starts with the day, the topic, and the date. That's just one way. You could do it many ways, like unit, lesson, or unit, chapter, lesson, date, whatever you think is appropriate. Consider color coding your folders too. Maybe all of your face-to-face days are green and all your flex days are red. Things like that can help students easily identify which they're on. And then consider images and objectives on your folder. So this example has objectives listed, and there's also an image to sort of make it called out a little bit more. Now when you chunk your content, try to consider keeping things to 3 to 7 chunks. Like this number here doesn't mean a lot to us, but if we chunk it like a social security number, now it does. This number, 10 digits, seem random, but really it's a telephone number. When we chunk them, it's easier to remember. License plates chunked into 3 and 3 rather than 6. Zip codes are 5. Think about how we chunk things, because our cognitive load says we can remember 5 plus or minus 2 items. If we just have things in one big long scrolling list in our Schoology page, it's going to be hard for students to follow it. Again, chunk into meaningful pieces. In this case, it's units. That might be one thing. You might do themes, weeks, projects, etc. Then secondly, have clear, consistent directions. Consistency will mean when it's posted, so maybe you always post it by a certain time every day. Where it's posted, maybe it's an embedded slideshow, the students know they can look there. How it looks, so maybe the format's the same every time. Maybe there's always an overview and a to-do list, but you decide what it looks like and be consistent. And then the format for the directions, consider video and text directions. We found that video seems to resonate more with the kids. When they hear their teacher tell them what to do, it just makes more sense and it connects. So consider both text and video. And then maybe you want to put all your pages that have the directions on an inline page so kids don't have to click into it. It's just right there. And finally, think of a way for kids to keep track of their progress. A lot of times good online design will suggest that you post things in multiple places and multiple ways for students with different learning styles. Consider a checklist for them. So here's an example of a Google Sheet where you could just make this an assignment each flex day where you list the things they have to do and the kids could check them off when they're done. That's just one example. This clear, consistent style and design, again, references even how the assignment pages are formatted. So maybe you always have those consistent headings on every assignment. Third, use clear, consistent use of fonts. Now, to be ADA compliant, really, when you're making fonts, you should highlight them and then use the style menu to choose what kind of text it is. It's not required right now, but it may be at some point. So here I could highlight outcome, choose heading 1. All my headings will be the same, and then screen readers can read that appropriately. This text would probably end up being paragraph. And then remember, your hyperlinks should always be bold, blue, and underlined. That's the universal sign for hyperlinks, and sometimes those formattings don't stick in Schoology, so you might have to do that by hand. Fourth, be intentional with your use of media. Have meaningful use of media. So balance that amount of text and media. You do have a lot of text, chunk it into short paragraphs. People tend not to read really long, verbose, word-heavy pages. Make sure your images have meaning to them. They teach something. They're not just decorative. Videos and things like that, embed them whenever you can so the students don't have to leave your page. They're just right there. And it's okay to have a little white space to reduce crowding. It just makes the page easier to look at. Notice in this page you don't have to scroll very far. Reduce that scrolling whenever possible. So a couple ADA compliancy things to think about. With your pictures, you want to add some alt text, sometimes called image description. So when you click on the picture and click on the little menu, edit, you can type in a description for what that picture is. Then screen readers can read that. For videos, try to make sure you have closed captioning. A lot of the YouTube ones will already have it, but if they don't have it, you can add those yourself. Finally, as we mentioned earlier, think about choosing those text menus styles because that will format things consistently and tag them for screen readers. And fifth, just remember to always keep it super simple. It's the KISS method. So reduce clicks whenever possible. So if you have a video and an assignment, maybe embed the video right into the assignment so they don't have to go to 2 different places. Reduce clicks. If you have 5 different hyperlinks, maybe put them all on a page rather than 5 separate items in the list in Schoology. Reduce scrolling whenever possible. Good design principles say you shouldn't have to scroll more than like a page and a half if possible. Embed content. If you have an interactive game or something, put it right on the page if you can, or a video like we mentioned, or pictures. Embed them. Google Docs can be embedded if need be. Slideshows can be embedded. Put those right in the presentations on the page. Reduce and chunk your text. Again, keep it pretty simple and lean if you can. Use page dividers. Sometimes people will put a little line divider between like the overview and the to-do just to break up the information. Use headers to label the chunks of content on your page. Use Google Files whenever possible because Google is more universal for our students. Avoid the Word documents and PDFs unless they're just view-onlys. And then avoid tables, and I crossed it out here because tables don't work on phones and mobile devices very well. So here's an example. This is an assignment that has an Edpuzzle built right into it. It's got text with headers. It's chunked into a bulleted list. The text chunks are fairly short. There are hyperlinks embedded right into it with the blue text. So things are kind of condensed and there's not a lot of scrolling here. And finally, check out the style guide that we have. It's got these same rules and guidelines put on them, so you can kind of use that as a checklist for yourself. There's also possibly templates available that you can use so that you don't have to recreate the style every time. You can just change the content. That will allow you to save time and be consistent. Overall, again, be simple, clear, consistent, and ADA compliant. Because like our kids say, they need to know where to go to find something. They don't want to get lost. They want clear expectations. So let's help our kids out and have really good design.